Harsh white winter light glares across the Bellevue penthouse, 70 stories above the ground. In a marble bathroom, a German Shepherd canine named Titan plants himself between a 5-year-old boy and the one person paid to protect him. The air is thick with cleaning chemicals and the smell of scorched skin. On the counter, a ceramic hair straightener glows like a warning, and the nanny's smile is perfect, cold, and unwavering. She was hired by an absent billionaire to create a perfect son, but her method of correction demands heat, silence, and pain. What she didn't count on was the one person she never noticed, the housekeeper, hiding in a closet, whispering the truth into a 911 call. And when Titan follows the scent of fear, the penthouse will shift from a private fortress to a prison of evidence. What happens next will make you believe in quiet miracles and second chances for the forgotten. Before we begin, tell me where you are watching from. Drop your country in the comments below. If you believe no child or animal should ever face fear alone, hit subscribe now and share this story with someone who needs hope. 70 stories above Bellevue, the Olympus Tower penthouse was less a home than a sterile, high-altitude viewing platform. A harsh, white winter light pressed against the floor-to-ceiling windows, revealing a panoramic view of Lake Washington. A frigid, dark blue expanse that looked almost frozen. The distant Seattle skyline was a sharp, digital silhouette against the pale sky. Frost traced delicate, fern-like patterns on the corners of the glass, a cold art that the building's climate control fought to erase. Inside, the silence was almost pressurized, broken only by the faint, electronic sigh of automated shades adjusting to the glare and the whisper of the advanced air filtration system. Every surface was a testament to minimalist precision. Vast, uninterrupted floors of white marble, brushed chrome fixtures, and stark white leather furniture designed for aesthetics, not comfort. It was a pristine, high-tech vacuum, meticulously curated and utterly devoid of warmth. On a low-profile sofa, 5-year-old Leo Ashford sat perfectly still. He was small for his age, with a cascade of fine, honey-blonde hair that fell into wide, dark eyes that seemed to absorb all the light in the room and reflect none of it back. He held an artisan-crafted wooden train engine, but he wasn't playing. His thumb just repetitively traced a single painted stripe on its side, a silent, rhythmic motion in the profound stillness. Watching him from the kitchen island was Evelyn Reed, the woman entrusted with his care. Evelyn, in her late 30s, possessed a severe, elegant beauty. Her dark hair was pulled back into a flawless chignon, not a single strand daring to escape. She wore a crisp, tailored navy blue dress, a uniform of her expensive professionalism. Her movements were economical and precise, as she arranged organic berries in a glass bowl, placing each one as if it were a chess piece. Hired by Leo's father for her impeccable resume, a child development degree, fluency in 3 languages, and references from the country's elite, Evelyn governed the penthouse with an authority built on perfect, inviolable order. Her smile was a bright, practiced tool deployed with precision, but it never reached her pale, icy blue eyes. A soft, digital chime echoed through the living area. "Mr. Ashford, Leo, it's your father." Evelyn's entire demeanor instantly softened, her face becoming a mask of warm affection. She tapped the wall-mounted screen, and Julian Ashford's face materialized, sharp and handsome, even through the pixelation of a trans-Pacific call. He was a tech billionaire defined by his ambition, a man living in boardrooms and airport lounges. "Evie, how's my big man?" Julian's voice boomed, full of genuine love. At the sound, Leo didn't run to the screen. He flinched, his small shoulders tightening, and his thumb froze on the train. Evelyn laid a gentle hand on his hair. "Say hello to your father, Leo." Leo's eyes remained fixed on the floor. "Hi, Daddy," he whispered, the sound barely audible. Julian's smile faltered. "He seems quiet." Evelyn laughed, a light, airy sound that seemed to bounce off the hard surfaces. "Oh, he's just tired. We spent the entire afternoon at the new indoor play gym, didn't we, Leo? He ran himself ragged on the climbing structures." She stroked his hair. "He misses you terribly. We both do." Julian's expression relaxed. "I knew I could count on you, Evie. I'd be lost without you. I have to run. Board meeting. I love you, buddy." The screen went black. Instantly, the warmth evaporated from Evelyn's face. Her hand, which had been gently stroking Leo's hair, became firm, gripping his shoulder. "Now, Leo," she stated, her voice returning to its cool, pristine monotone. "We do not mumble. When your father speaks, you look at the screen and you speak clearly. What do we say? Leo shrank under her grip. Yes, Miss Evelyn. Good. Go to your room. It is time for structured, quiet play. Leo nodded, his face pale. He slid off the sofa, leaving the train behind, and walked silently down the white marble hallway, his small figure disappearing. Evelyn watched him go, her expression unreadable. Precisely at 10 o'clock a.m., the chime of the private service elevator sounded. Maria Sanchez entered, stamping the fine powder of snow from her boots onto the utility mat. Her cheeks were pink from the biting wind. She was a woman in her late 40s, with kind, tired eyes lined by worry. She quickly hung her heavy winter coat in the staff closet, revealing the practical black scrubs and comfortable sneakers underneath. This job, cleaning the Ashford penthouse 3 times a week, paid more than her last 2 jobs combined. It was the salary that kept her son in community college and paid the rent on her small apartment across the lake. She needed this job desperately. Good morning, Miss Reed, Maria said softly. Evelyn nodded, not looking up from her task. Maria, the master bathroom needs polishing, and the guest suites are to be prepared. Mr. Ashford may have associates visiting. Yes, miss. Maria gathered her supplies, always feeling the chill in this apartment, a chill that had nothing to do with the winter outside. It felt like a museum where life was observed, but not lived. As she pushed her cart down the grand hallway, she saw Leo sitting on the floor just outside his room, his back against the wall. He hadn't gone inside. He was just sitting, staring at the marble pattern. He looked up as she approached, his eyes wide with alarm, as if he'd been caught. Maria's heart, the heart of a mother, gave a painful twinge. She gave him a small, conspiratorial smile. It's just me, mijo, she whispered, her voice gentle. She knelt, lowering herself to his level. That's a nice shirt, she said, pointing to the cartoon robot on it. As she did, his long sleeve, which was slightly too big, rode up his arm. On the delicate, pale skin of his inner wrist, Maria saw it. It wasn't large, but it was stark and undeniable, a dark, purplish bruise, dotted with smaller, angrier red marks. It was not the wide, splotchy mark of a fall from a climbing structure. It was specific. It was the distinct, sickening shape of a grip. Leo saw her looking. In a flash of pure panic, he snatched his hand back, pulling the sleeve down so hard it almost ripped. He scrambled to his feet and backed away, his eyes filled with a terror far too old for his face. He looked wildly down the hall, toward the kitchen. Leo? What is it? Maria whispered, alarmed by his reaction. Before she could say more, Evelyn's voice, sharp and sudden, cut through the silence. She had moved without a sound. Maria, I believe I gave you instructions for the master bathroom. Maria stood up quickly, her face flushing. Yes, miss, I saw the little one. She had to say something. Miss Evelyn, his arm, I saw a bruise. Maybe he fell? Evelyn let out a light, sharp laugh, as if Maria had told a silly joke. Oh, that. Goodness, you startled me. Yes, he took a tumble at the play gym yesterday. I told you he ran himself ragged. She smiled, a perfect white smile. He's so clumsy, always running faster than his feet can carry him. You know how boys are. The explanation was smooth, plausible, and delivered with absolute confidence. Evelyn then reached out and placed a rigid hand on Leo's back, guiding him toward his room. Time for your nap, sweet boy. She turned back to Maria, the smile still fixed, but her eyes were like chips of blue ice. The marble scratches so easily. Please don't distract him again. He is on a very precise schedule. It was not a request. It was an order. Maria swallowed, her heart pounding against her ribs. Yes, miss. She turned her cart and pushed it toward the master bathroom, the squeak of the wheels sounding obscenely loud in the quiet hallway. As she began the long, arduous task of polishing the endless marble, she couldn't shake the image from her mind. It hadn't looked like a fall. It looked, she thought with a cold shiver, like fingers. Maria Sanchez pushed her cart into the master bathroom, the wheels gliding almost silently over the heated marble floor. The room was the size of her entire apartment. A vast, freestanding tub sat before a window, overlooking the frozen expanse of Lake Washington, and an entire wall was dedicated to a walk-in shower, encased in seamless glass. Her orders were to polish the chrome, a task she normally found meditative, but today her hands were shaking. Evelyn's words, "You know how boys are," echoed in the sterile chamber, battling with the image of the bruise. It hadn't been a clumsy fall. It was the distinct, sickening shape of a grip, the small red dots implying immense, targeted pressure. She tried to dismiss it, her mind chanting a desperate mantra. "He's fine. You're imagining things. You need this job. Don't be stupid, Maria." She uncapped the expensive citrus-scented polish, the chemical smell sharp in the air. She was scrubbing the base of a faucet when she froze. The penthouse was tomb quiet, but the marble walls and hard surfaces acted like an amplifier. She heard it. It wasn't loud. It was a faint, muffled cry, a sound of pain so deep it was choked off before it could become a full sob. It was followed by a sharp, guttural hiss. Maria's heart hammered against her ribs. The sound wasn't coming from the master suite. It was coming from down the hall, from Leo's wing of the penthouse. She set the polishing cloth down, her breath held tight in her chest. She listened again. Silence. Then a voice, cold, clear, and utterly devoid of emotion. It was Evelyn. "We cannot have flaws, Leo. Flaws must be corrected. You must be perfect." Another sound followed, a tiny, desperate gasp, and the sharp snap of something closing. Maria moved without thinking, her fear eclipsed by a wave of cold dread. She crept out of the bathroom, her soft-soled sneakers making no sound on the marble floor. She moved down the long, white hallway, past the museum-quality art hanging on the walls. The door to Leo's bedroom was slightly ajar, maybe an inch. Maria's blood ran cold. She leaned forward, pressing her eye to the narrow gap. The room was as immaculate as the rest of the penthouse, decorated in muted tones of gray and white. Leo was standing by his ensuite bathroom door, wearing only his pajama bottoms. He was shaking, his small back rigid. Evelyn stood in front of him, her back to Maria. She was in her stocking feet, having removed her shoes to move silently. In her hand, she held not a toy, not a brush, but a high-end ceramic hair straightener, its power cord trailing back to the bathroom wall socket. A faint wisp of steam rose from the plates. "You lied to your father," Evelyn said, her voice a calm, terrifying monotone. "You told him you were tired when you were asked to speak. That was an imperfection." Leo was crying, but it was a silent, practiced cry, his face contorted in agony as tears streamed down his cheeks, but no sound escaped his lips. He had been trained. "No, Miss Evelyn, Evelyn raised the tool. "Perfection requires discipline. Now, hold out your arm. The other one. We must be symmetrical." Leo whimpered, a sound like a trapped animal, and held out his left arm, his eyes squeezed shut. Evelyn reached forward, her movements as precise as when she'd arranged the berries. Maria saw the hot ceramic plates, glowing with a faint internal heat, move toward the boy's delicate inner wrist, the same spot Maria had seen the other bruise. Maria's hand flew to her mouth to stifle her own scream. She saw the tool make contact. There was a faint sizzle and the sickening, sweet smell of burnt hair and skin. Leo's entire body seized, but he remained standing, his silence more horrifying than any scream. Maria recoiled, stumbling backward. She ran, her mind blank with terror, not back to the master bathroom, but toward the service corridor. She fumbled with the handle to the utility closet, a dark, narrow space smelling of cleaning supplies and old rags. She fell inside, pulling the door shut, plunging herself into darkness. Her hands, slick with polish and sweat, fumbled for the phone in her pocket. She couldn't breathe. "He's burning him. Oh God, she's burning him." She dialed 911, her thumb shaking so violently it took 3 tries. A calm voice answered. "911, what is your emergency?" Maria pressed the phone to her ear, but she couldn't speak. She could only whimper, her throat locked in terror. "Please," she finally whispered, the word tearing from her chest. "Olympus Tower, Penthouse. Oh God, he's burning the boy." She was sobbing, unable to form another word, terrified Evelyn would hear her. "Ma'am, I need you to stay on the line. What is your name?" Maria just cried, the sound of her own fear filling the closet. Miles away in the downtown precinct, that whispered, open-line call cut through the mundane afternoon chatter. In Patrol Car 714, Officer Cole Donovan tapped his fingers on the steering wheel, the cruiser idling in the cold. Cole was in his late 30s, with a lean, wiry build that looked deceptively relaxed. His face was sharp, angular, with a strong jawline shadowed by dark stubble. His eyes, a deep, observant gray, were perpetually tired. Cole was a good cop, a pragmatic one, but he carried a quiet, simmering anger that he channeled into his work. 3 years ago, he'd missed a sign on a domestic call, a child he'd thought was fine, who wasn't. He didn't miss signs anymore. Calls involving kids were his personal penance. Beside him, in the specialized K9 unit, sat Titan. Titan was a 3-year-old sable-coated German shepherd, a 90-pound muscle of disciplined intelligence. His amber eyes missed nothing. He was not a pet. He was Cole's partner, trained for patrol, tracking, and apprehension. He was currently asleep, his head resting on his paws, but his ears twitched at every radio crackle. The dispatcher's voice came over the radio, tense and clipped. Unit 7 morphine, available for a 415 child abuse. Olympus Tower, Penthouse A. Got a 911 open line, female caller, whispering, hysterical, states a child is being burned. Line is still open, audio is just muffled sobbing. Cole's hand left the steering wheel. His tiredness evaporated, replaced by a cold, sharp focus. Olympus Tower, the glass pinnacle of Bellevue's new wealth. This wasn't a routine call. 714 is en route, he said, his voice calm, but he had already shifted the car into drive. He hit the lights. The sudden flash of red and blue against the gray winter slush made pedestrians turn and stare. Titan was instantly awake, rising to his feet in the back, his posture alert, sensing the adrenaline shift in his handler. Cole didn't use the siren, not yet. He drove fast, weaving through traffic, his mind sorting possibilities. A penthouse, a hysterical caller, a child. His jaw tightened. He wouldn't be too late. Not again. They pulled up to the glittering glass lobby of the Olympus Tower, the lights of his cruiser washing over the shocked face of the concierge. Cole was out of the car before it fully stopped, Titan at his heel. "Officer Donovan, Bellevue PD, I need access to the penthouse elevator, now." The lobby of the Olympus Tower was a vault of beige marble and hushed, expensive silence. The concierge, a tall man in his late 50s named Mr. Davies, regarded Officer Cole Donovan with a look of polite, practiced obstruction. Davies wore an immaculately tailored black suit, his silver hair combed perfectly, his entire being radiating an aura of discreet defense. He was paid not just to open doors, but to keep the wrong ones closed. "An officer? Is there an appointment?" he asked, his voice a smooth, low monotone. Cole felt the familiar wall of wealth and privacy rising before him. "No appointment, sir," Cole said, his voice clipped and low. Titan stood at his side, alert and vibrating with contained energy, his presence a stark, primal contrast to the sterile lobby. "We have an active 911 distress call originating from Penthouse A. I need access to the elevator now." Mr. Davies' thin smile didn't waver. "Sir, our residents' privacy is paramount. Penthouse A is the Ashford residence. I am required to call up first to announce your—" "This isn't a request," Cole cut him off, his voice dropping into a register that allowed no argument. The memory of the case he'd missed, the child he'd failed, flashed in his mind. Not again. "I have an open line. The dispatcher is hearing what sounds like a child in distress. That gives me probable cause. You will give me keycard access to that elevator, or in 30 seconds, you will be under arrest for obstructing a felony investigation." The concierge's smile finally vanished. The threat of arrest, the mention of a felony, broke through his professional armor. He stared at Cole's hard, unblinking gray eyes, then at the 90-pound German shepherd, staring past him at the elevator bank. Wordlessly, Davies swiped his master keycard. "The elevator on the right is the private access, officer." Cole nodded. "Stay here. Do not call up. Do not touch your phone. Am I clear?" Davies simply nodded, his face pale. Cole and Titan stepped into the elevator, a mirrored cube of brushed steel. The doors slid shut, sealing them in silence. The ascent was unnervingly fast and smooth. Cole watched the floor numbers climb, 45, 58, 65. He flexed his hands. In the mirrored walls, he saw his own reflection. The tired eyes, the dark stubble on his angular jaw, the tension in his shoulders. Beside him, Titan's reflection was pure, focused readiness. The dog knew they were working. He panted softly, his amber eyes fixed on the door. The elevator slowed, and a soft, digital ding announced their arrival. The doors opened, not into a hallway, but directly into the private foyer of the penthouse. The sterile white marble floor of the foyer was exactly as Maria had described. And blocking their path, standing as if she were expecting a dinner guest, was Evelyn Reed. She was even more striking in person, her dark hair in its perfect chignon, her tailored navy dress immaculate. She had composed herself, but her face was overly pale, and her icy blue eyes held a glittering, frantic energy. Her hands were clasped tightly in front of her. She immediately put on her concerned voice, the one Cole had heard so many handlers use. "Officers? My goodness, what is this? Is there a problem in the building?" Cole stepped out of the elevator, Titan at his heel. He kept his voice level. "Ma'am, we received a 911 emergency call from this residence." Evelyn laughed, a sound that was too high, too brittle. "That is absolutely impossible. The phones are working perfectly. Perhaps one of the staff made a mistake on a different floor?" Cole was not listening to her. He was processing the scene. The air smelled strongly of citrus-scented cleaning polish. And something else. Underneath the chemical sharpness was a faint, acrid, and sickeningly sweet odor. He knew that smell. It was the smell of burnt hair and seared skin. "Ma'am, I need to see the child who lives here," Cole said, his eyes scanning the apartment past her. "I'm afraid that's not possible," Evelyn said, her tone shifting from concerned to authoritative. She took a step forward, physically blocking his view. "Leo is having his scheduled nap. You are upsetting the entire household. Mr. Ashford is a very important man, and I am his executive child care provider. I must insist you leave and speak to his attorney." She was good. She was arrogant, confident, and dismissive. But Cole wasn't looking at her. He was looking at Titan. The dog had been sniffing the air, his head raised. While Evelyn was focused on Cole, Titan's entire posture changed. His ears went flat. He detected the scent of fear, the residual adrenaline of the terror that had happened minutes before, and he smelled the burn. He ignored Evelyn completely. It was not an aggressive move. It was a tracking move. He simply bypassed her, his nose to the ground, and pushed past her leg into the main living area. Evelyn's composure shattered. "No! Get that animal out of here! You cannot just enter! This is private property!" She reached for Titan's collar. "Heel!" Cole commanded, not to the dog, but to her. He put his hand up, palm out. "He is a police officer, ma'am, and he has alerted. Step aside." Cole pushed past her, following Titan, his hand hovering over his equipment. The dog was moving with purpose, his paws clicking on the marble. He ignored the vast kitchen, ignored the Grand Master suite. He followed the scent trail down the long, white hallway. As they passed the service corridor, Cole heard a sound, a choked, terrified whimper. He paused, holding a hand up to silence Evelyn, who was still protesting behind him. He cracked the door to the utility closet. It was dark. In the corner he saw a crumpled figure in black scrubs. It was Maria. She was clutching her phone, her face streaked with tears, her eyes wide with abject terror. "He's in his room," she whispered, her voice cracking. "The bathroom. She burned him. The machine." That was all Cole needed. "Stay there. Lock this door. More officers are coming," he ordered. He turned back to the hall. Titan was already at the far end, at the last door on the left, sniffing frantically at the narrow gap at the bottom. He let out a single, sharp, muffled woof. "Leo!" Cole called out, his voice firm but not aggressive. "Bellevue Police!" He pushed the door open. The room was immaculate, gray and white, toys lined up in perfect rows. The bed was empty. Titan barked once, a sharp, commanding sound, directed at the ensuite bathroom. Cole pushed the bathroom door open, his heart pounding. The room was white marble, just like the one Maria had been cleaning. The air was thick with the smell of the burn. And there, in the far corner, huddled on the heated floor between the wall and the marble-encased toilet, was Leo. He was trying to make himself small, to disappear. He wasn't crying. He was rocking back and forth, his body shaking in silent, practiced terror. He was clutching his left wrist to his chest. On the white quartz countertop, its cord snaking to the wall, sat the ceramic hair straightener. Its small red power light was still glowing. Cole saw the tool. He saw the boy. He saw the angry, fresh red welt, an identical match to the bruise on the other wrist. Everything clicked into place. Evelyn Reed, standing in the doorway behind him, let out a strangled gasp, the sound of her perfect world collapsing. Cole turned to her, his face a mask of cold fury. Then he looked at his partner. "Titan, watch her." The dog turned, sat directly in the bathroom doorway, and fixed his amber eyes on Evelyn, a low, warning rumble building in his chest. Cole turned back to the boy. He unclipped his radio. 714. I have the victim. Send EMS, code 3, Child Protective Services, and get a supervisor down here. Suspect is in custody. He knelt, softening his voice, the years of regret fueling his need to get this one right. Hey, Leo, I'm Officer Cole. You're safe now. It's all over. The silence in the marble bathroom was a heavy, ringing vacuum, broken only by Leo's shallow, hitched breathing. He was still pressed into the corner, his small body rocking in that terrible, silent rhythm of practiced trauma. Evelyn Reed stood frozen in the doorway, her mask of perfection finely, grotesquely shattered. Her mouth was slightly open, her icy eyes fixed on the small, glowing red power light of the hair straightener on the counter. Titan remained perfectly still at Cole Donovan's command, a low, guttural rumble originating deep in his chest. He was a 90-pound wall of disciplined fury, and he did not take his eyes off the woman. Cole's voice, when it came, was dangerously quiet. Ma'am, you will step back, walk into the hallway, and sit on the floor with your hands visible. Do it now. Evelyn flinched, her gaze snapping to Cole. For a split second, her arrogance returned. You have no right. The rumble from Titan's chest deepened into a short, sharp bark that echoed off the marble. Evelyn screamed and scrambled backward, tripping over her own feet to sit heavily on the hallway floor. Titan, stay, Cole ordered. The dog moved to the hallway, positioning himself between Evelyn and the bathroom, his eyes locked on her. Cole's entire focus contracted to the small boy in the corner. The past, his old failure, was a cold weight in his chest. Do not frighten him. Do not rush. He kept his voice low, a soft murmur. Hey, Leo. I'm Cole. You're okay. You're safe. He didn't move toward the boy. He knelt, staying by the door. That's my partner, Titan. He's a very good boy. He's here to keep everyone safe. Leo's rocking didn't stop, but his wide, terrified eyes, which had been staring at the wall, flickered toward the dog in the hall, then back to Cole. It was the first sign of engagement. Cole saw the fresh, angry red welt on the boy's left wrist, which he was clutching to his chest. On his other wrist, Cole could see the identical, older bruise Maria had spotted. His blood ran cold. This was a pattern. This was methodical. He unclipped his radio, his thumb finding the button. 714, I have a 911 open line, he said, using a pre-established code, requesting a silent Code 3 medical response and a CPS supervisor. The scene is active. He didn't want to say secure while the victim was still this terrified. He heard the ding of the private elevator, a sound that made Evelyn flinch, and Maria, still in the closet, let out a small cry. Footsteps, heavy and fast, approached. In here, Cole called out. Two paramedics in dark blue uniforms appeared, their movements swift and professional. The lead paramedic was a young woman, Anya Sharma, with dark hair pulled into a tight, practical bun, and sharp, compassionate eyes. Her partner, Ben, was older, broader, and carried the heavy medical pack. They assessed the scene in a second. The cop, the dog, the woman crying on the floor, and the acrid smell of the burn. Anya's eyes immediately found Cole. Where's the victim? Cole nodded his head toward the corner. Leo, 5 years old, active burns. He's terrified. Anya's face softened, her professionalism clicking into a different gear. She crouched down, just as Cole had, keeping her distance. Hi, Leo. My name is Anya. I'm a paramedic. My job is to help people who are hurt. Can I just come and look at your arm? Leo pressed himself harder into the wall. Just behind the paramedics, a third woman arrived. She was not in uniform. She was in her late 40s, wearing a practical wool coat over a simple blouse, her face etched with a permanent, weary kindness, but her eyes were sharp. This was Sarah Jenkins, a senior CPS supervisor. She was known for being unflappable, a necessary armor in a career spent walking into nightmares. She took in the scene, the opulent, sterile penthouse, the high-end torture device still plugged in, the terrified child, and her expression hardened. She walked quietly to Cole. Officer Donovan, Sarah Jenkins, CPS. Give me the overview. Cole never took his eyes off Leo. Dispatch got a 911 whisper call from the housekeeper, Maria. She's in the utility closet. She witnessed the assault. The suspect, he nodded at Evelyn, is the nanny, The weapon is the hair straightener. This is not the first time. Sarah nodded grimly. Thank God for Maria. In the bathroom, Anya was making slow progress. Leo, I see you hurt your wrist. That looks so sore. I have some water here that can make it feel better. She held up a sterile water bottle. But first I just need to make sure you're okay. Can I just look? Leo didn't move, but he didn't scream. Anya took that as permission. She moved forward slowly, on her knees. Okay, sweetie, I'm just going to look. She gently reached for his pajama top, which was rucked up around his chest. Let's just pull this down. She pulled the soft cotton fabric down over his small, trembling torso, and then she stopped. Her breath caught in her throat. Ben? She whispered, her voice tight. Ben, get the pediatric burn kit. Now. Cole and Sarah moved forward. What is it? Sarah asked. Anya looked up at them, her professional compassion momentarily replaced by a look of sheer horror. The back, she whispered. Look at his back. Leo's pajama top had been hiding it. His back, from his shoulder blades to his waist, was a roadmap of cruelty. It was covered in older, fainter, but identical injuries. There were at least a dozen other burns, all in different stages of healing. They were perfect, linear marks, side by side, like rungs on a ladder, the silent imprints of the ceramic plates. This wasn't discipline. This wasn't a mistake. This was systematic torture, inflicted over weeks, perhaps months. My God, Sarah Jenkins breathed, her hand going to her mouth. She looked at the hair straightener, then at the boy's back. It's a perfect match. This new horrific evidence changed everything. Sarah, her face, now a mask of cold, legal fury, nodded to Cole. Arrest her. I'm taking emergency custody. This child is not spending one more second in this house. Cole nodded. He'd already called for a transport unit. He stepped into the hall, where Evelyn was now weeping, not with remorse, but with indignation. This is a misunderstanding. You don't know what you're doing. Evelyn Reed, Cole said, his voice flat and official as he pulled out his handcuffs. You are under arrest for aggravated assault and felony child abuse. Her head snapped up, the tears stopping instantly, replaced by a venomous rage. You can't. Do you have any idea who Julian Ashford is? He will end you. He will have your job, your badge, everything. Ma'am, put your hands behind your back, Cole said, tired of her voice. As his backup officers escorted a screaming, protesting Evelyn into the elevator, Sarah Jenkins was kneeling where Anya had been. Anya and Ben were gently applying sterile, wet dressings to Leo's fresh burns. The boy was still silent, but he had stopped rocking. He was just watching them, his dark eyes enormous. Sarah turned to Cole, who had just finished bagging the hair straightener as evidence. Maria's statement will be critical, but this, she nodded at Leo's back, this speaks for itself. We have to notify the father. Cole sighed, running a hand over his face. That's the next problem, ma'am. Sarah looked at him. What? Is he one of those who's going to protect her? I don't know, Cole said, pulling out his notebook, but he's not going to be here anytime soon. According to the caller, Julian Ashford is in Singapore. The Penthouse, once a silent, pressurized stage, was now a flurry of quiet, official activity. The arrival of more officers and specialists had replaced the sterile hush with the clipped murmurs of procedure. Anya, the paramedic, was finishing her work, her movements gentle and practiced. She had administered a topical analgesic and wrapped Leo's fresh burns in sterile, non-stick gauze. The boy, Leo, had finally stopped shaking. He was wrapped in a thick, soft blanket from the medical kit, his enormous dark eyes watching every movement with a new, dazed curiosity. He still hadn't spoken a single word, but his silence was no longer terrified. It was watchful. Ben, Anya's partner, was methodically documenting the older, linear scars on the boy's back with a small, high-resolution camera, his face grim. Sarah Jenkins, the CPS supervisor, knelt beside Leo, her voice a low, steady murmur. Leo, you're going to come with me and Anya to the hospital. It's a really nice place called Seattle Children's. They have doctors who are experts at making ouchies feel better. Is that okay? Leo just stared at her. Then, very slowly, he gave a single, tiny nod. It was the first coherent response he'd given anyone. A wave of profound relief washed over the room. Cole Donovan left them to it, his focus shifting. The victim was safe. Now, the case began. He walked back to the utility closet. The door was still cracked open. Maria, he said softly. He heard a small sob. He pushed the door open to find Maria Sanchez exactly where he had left her, huddled in the darkness, clutching her phone so hard her knuckles were white. She was terrified, not of Evelyn, but of the consequences. She was the one who had broken the silence. "It's okay, Maria. She's gone. She's been arrested." Maria looked up at him, her face a mask of tears. "Mr. Ashford, my job, my son." "You did the right thing," Cole said, his voice firm but kind. "You saved his life. You are a witness to a felony, Maria. You are protected. No one is going to fire you." He helped her to her feet and guided her to a chair in the kitchen, best from the scene. He placed his partner, Titan, at her feet. The dog, sensing her distress, didn't sit in his usual alert guard posture, but lay down and rested his heavy head on her sneaker. Maria let out a choked sob and buried her hands in his thick fur. "I need you to tell me exactly what you saw," Cole said gently, opening his notebook. Maria told him. She told him about the first bruise, the lie about the play gym, and the horrifying sounds from the bedroom. She described looking through the door, the smell, the sizzle of the hair straightener, and Evelyn's cold, calm voice. She said, "We must be symmetrical." "Who says that?" Maria whispered, her body shaking. Cole wrote it all down. It was a perfect, damning statement. Anya and Ben rolled a small gurney into the room. "We're taking him now," Sarah said to Cole. "I'll ride with him. I'll be his legal guardian until the father is contacted and assessed." As they gently lifted Leo onto the gurney, the boy's eyes scanned the room, looking past the officers, past Sarah, past the paramedics. His gaze landed on Titan, who was still comforting Maria. The dog looked up, their eyes meeting for a brief second. Leo's hand, the uninjured one, reached out slightly from under the blanket before falling back. Cole saw the silent exchange. "I'll meet you at the hospital, Sarah," Cole said. "I have to get this witness statement finalized and brief the detective. And then, I have to make the call." Sarah nodded grimly. "Singapore. Godspeed, officer. This is the part I never get used to." She and the paramedics wheeled Leo out, leaving the penthouse, with its smell of burnt skin and citrus polish, to the forensics team. The Bellevue precinct was a sharp contrast to the Olympus Tower. It was functional, smelling of stale coffee, disinfectant, and paperwork. Evelyn Reed, her hands cuffed behind her back, sat in a sterile beige interrogation room. The frantic, screaming rage from the penthouse was gone. She was once again perfectly composed. Her face was a mask of cold, calculated indignation. She had entered a new phase, the wall of lies. The door opened, and Detective Kira Wells walked in, holding 2 styrofoam cups of terrible coffee. Kira was in her mid-40s, with sharp, intelligent brown eyes and dark hair cut into a severe, practical bob. She wore a charcoal gray pantsuit that was professional, expensive, and intimidating. She was the precinct's top investigator for crimes against children, a woman known for her methodical, razor-sharp mind, and her absolute lack of patience for bullshit. She placed 1 coffee on the table in front of Evelyn. "That's for you. You've had a long day." Evelyn ignored it. "I want my lawyer." Kira smiled, a thin, humorless expression. She sat down opposite Evelyn and took a sip of her own coffee. "You'll get one, after you're processed. Right now, I just want to understand your side, Evelyn. You're an executive childcare provider, right? Top of your field. This all looks like a terrible misunderstanding. Help me understand." Evelyn stared at a spot on the wall just past Kira's ear. "I will not say another word until I have spoken to Mr. Ashford's legal counsel. You have made a catastrophic mistake." Kira sighed, leaning back in her chair. "Okay, have it your way." She stood up. "The misunderstanding involves a dozen healed linear burns, a matching fresh burn, and a witness who watched you apply the misunderstanding with a 400-degree hair straightener. So, while you wait for that lawyer, we're running your prints, not just for Washington, but for all 50 states." Evelyn's composure didn't crack, but Kira saw it, a tiny involuntary flinch in her eye. Kira smiled again. "You see, Evelyn, I'm not really all that interested in what you have to say. I'm interested in what you've done. We're already pulling your employment history. We're going to talk to every family you've ever worked for. We're going to find out what other mistakes you've made." Kira left the room, closing the door on Evelyn's silent, perfect facade. She walked to her desk, where her team was already digging. Boss, a young analyst said. You were right. She's been bouncing. New York, LA, now here. The last two families she worked for. We can't get a statement. Both signed ironclad non-disclosure agreements. Kira sipped her bad coffee. NDAs, of course. The rich protecting the rich. Get a warrant. We're going to tear those NDAs apart. This wall of lies is coming down. Back in a small, quiet office, Cole Donovan sat with the file. It was now 5 p.m. in Bellevue. He'd confirmed Julian Ashford's location and his private satellite phone number. 5 p.m. in Bellevue was 8 a.m. tomorrow in Singapore. Mr. Ashford would be just waking up, preparing for his day of meetings. Cole ran a hand over his face, the stubble on his jaw rasping under his palm. This was the call he had dreaded, the one that broke a life in half. He pictured the man on the screen from Maria's description. Powerful, confident, trusting. He thought of Leo, the tiny silent nod in the sterile penthouse. He took a deep breath and dialed the long international number. He heard the electronic clicks, the faint hiss of a satellite connection, and then a ring. Once, twice. A man's voice, sharp, awake, and impatient, answered. This is Ashford. Cole closed his eyes. Mr. Ashford, my name is Officer Cole Donovan with the Bellevue Police Department in Washington. Sir, I am calling you regarding your son, Leo. There was a pause, a sudden cold silence on the other end of the world. The line was open. The clock had started. There was a sudden cold vacuum on the line. The connection was perfect, a digital whisper across 13 time zones, but the silence from the other side of the world was absolute. In Bellevue, it was 5:01 p.m., the winter darkness pressing against Officer Cole Donovan's office window. In Singapore, it was 8:01 a.m. Cole could hear the faint civilized chime of a clock in the background of a sunlit hotel room. He heard a sharp intake of breath. Julian Ashford's voice, when it returned, was no longer the impatient bark of a billionaire. It was a strangled, hollow whisper. What did you just say? Julian Ashford was standing in the penthouse suite of the Marina Bay Sands, a white hotel bathrobe pulled hastily over a crisp button-down shirt and trousers. He was a man in his early 40s, built like an athlete, with sharp, handsome features and dark hair just beginning to show distinguished silver at the temples. He was a man accustomed to mastering every variable, a man for whom the world bent. Now, his knuckles were white on the receiver, his face pale with disbelief. Officer Donovan, this is a joke, a sick joke. I just spoke to Evelyn yesterday. Leo is fine. He was tired from the play gym. Mr. Ashford, this is
Not a joke, Cole said, his voice flat, steady. A necessary anchor. Your son, Leo, is safe. He is at Seattle Children's Hospital. The injuries are not life-threatening, but they are serious. Hospital? What accident? A fall? Julian demanded, his voice rising, grasping for a logical explanation. Put Evelyn on the phone, right now. I want to talk to her. Sir, Cole said, his own voice hardening with the memory of the scene. You can't. It was not an accident. Your childcare provider, Evelyn Reed, has been arrested. She is in custody. The injuries are... They are burns, sir. We believe they were inflicted intentionally over a period of time. Your housekeeper, Maria, witnessed the assault today and called us. She saved your son's life. The phone clattered against a hard surface. Cole heard a heavy sound, the sound of a man's weight hitting a chair. He waited. Julian's voice came back, unrecognizable, broken. Burns? She... Evelyn? No, not Evelyn. She was perfect. The references... She... Oh, God. The billionaire vanished. The father materialized, small and terrified. My son! My boy! What did she do to my boy? Sir, Cole said, we have him. He's with the head of CPS, Sarah Jenkins. He's being treated, but he needs you. Julian Ashford didn't respond. He slammed the receiver down. He strode to the intercom on the wall of his suite. Anna, he roared, not at an assistant, but at the empty air. Get the Gulfstream, now! File the flight plan Singapore to Boeing Field. I don't care about the weather. I don't care about the board meeting. Cancel everything. He ripped the bathrobe off and grabbed a black carbon fiber suitcase, throwing his passport, his laptop, and a spare shirt into it with violent,
uncoordinated movements. His hands were shaking. He wasn't the calm executive who ran a global empire. He was just a man in a blind panic. His eyes caught a silver-frame photo on his nightstand, a picture of him and Leo at a park, Leo on his shoulders, both of them laughing. The guilt hit him like a physical blow. He remembered every perfect report from Evelyn, every text message praising Leo's discipline, every time he'd let the video call end early. He had trusted her. He had handed his son to a monster. His private assistant buzzed back, her voice hesitant. "Mr. Ashford, air traffic control is reporting a severe winter storm cell over the North Pacific. They are advising against the northern route. It's dangerous, sir. We may have to delay." "I said, now," Julian whispered into the intercom, his voice a low, terrifying growl. "You find a route. You fuel the plane. I will be at the airstrip in 10 minutes. The flight was a special kind of hell. The Gulfstream G650 was the pinnacle of private luxury, a quiet tube of cream leather and polished burwood, but Julian didn't see it. He sat in the large captain's chair, strapped in, refusing food, refusing drink. For the first 9 hours, he just stared out the window at the endless blue of the Pacific. Then, the storm hit. It came out of the darkness, a wall of churning black clouds and ice. The aircraft began to shudder, then buck, dropping hundreds of feet at a time in violent air pockets. The cabin creaked, and alarms chimed softly in the cockpit. The flight attendant, a young woman with a pale face, came to check on him. "Mr. Ashford, please remain seated. It's quite severe." Julian just looked at her, his eyes hollow. He didn't feel fear. He welcomed the violence. The storm outside was a pale imitation of the one raging inside his chest. It felt like the punishment he deserved. The satellite phone rang, its chime jarring in the roaring cabin. He snatched it up. "Ashford." "Mr. Ashford, this is Detective Kira Wells, Bellevue Police." Her voice was female, crisp, and all business, cutting through the static. "I am the lead investigator on your son's case. I'm calling to update you. Ms. Reed is in custody and has, unsurprisingly, requested a lawyer." Is he okay?" Julian's voice was raw. "He is stable. The doctors at Children's are monitoring him. He's a very brave, very quiet little boy." There was a pause. "Mr. Ashford, I need to ask you a difficult question for our investigation. Were you aware of any of Ms. Reed's disciplinary methods?" The accusation, buried in the professional question, made Julian's stomach clench. "Aware?" he choked out. "Aware of what? I trusted her. I hired her. I saw the references. They were flawless." "Mr. Ashford," Detective Wells's voice said, and there was a note of cold anger in it now. "Those flawless references were buried under 2 separate non-disclosure agreements from families in New York and Los Angeles. We're petitioning to have them unsealed. It appears Ms. Reed has a history of correcting imperfections, and her wealthy employers had a history of paying her to quietly disappear." The sat phone slipped from Julian's numb fingers. It wasn't just a mistake. It wasn't just him. It was his entire world. The world of wealth, of endowments, of privacy, the very system he ruled. It had hidden her. It had conspired to put this monster in his home. The rest of the flight, another 8 agonizing hours, was a blur of turbulence and self-loathing. The plane finally descended through the thick, swirling snow, landing heavily on the private runway at Boeing Field in the dead of night. The storm that had chased him across the ocean was now hammering Seattle. A black sedan, its engine running, was waiting on the tarmac. Julian didn't wait for the stairs to fully deploy. He ran down them, the icy wind and snow stinging his face, his suit jacket flapping. He ripped the car door open. "Seattle Children's Hospital," he snarled at the driver. "As fast as you can drive." The hospital was an island of warm light in the snowy darkness. Julian burst through the emergency room doors, a wild, haggard man. He was unshaven, his eyes bloodshot, his expensive suit wrinkled from 20 hours of travel. He was no longer the billionaire. He was just a father. In the quiet, sterile waiting area, 2 figures stood up. One was Sarah Jenkins, the CPS supervisor, her face kind but firm. The other was a tall, lean police officer with tired, gray eyes and dark stubble on his angular face. Cole Donovan had waited. He hadn't gone home. Julian Ashford, the man who commanded the world, stopped. He stood before the officer, stripped of all his power, his body trembling. He was ready to face the truth of what his absence had wrought. Julian Ashford stood in the antiseptic glare of the hospital waiting room, a wild, haggard man stripped of all his power. The snow melted from his expensive suit jacket, pooling on the polished linoleum. He was unshaven, his eyes bloodshot from 20 hours of travel and gut-wrenching guilt. He stared at the two people before him, the CPS supervisor, Sarah Jenkins, her face a mask of weary professionalism, and the police officer Cole Donovan, whose tired, gray eyes held a quiet, unsettling judgment. "Where is he?" Julian's voice was a raucous rasp. "Where is my son?" Sarah Jenkins stepped forward, her posture firm. She was the gatekeeper. "Mr. Ashford, I am Sarah Jenkins with Child Protective Services. Your son is in a private room upstairs. He is stable and he is safe." "I need to see him now," Julian said, taking a step toward the elevator. Sarah didn't move. She held up a hand. "Before you do, you need to understand what you are walking into. The doctors have completed their initial assessment." Julian's hands clenched. "What? What did she do?" "This was not a single incident," Sarah said, her voice steady and void of emotion. "The paramedics' report confirmed what we saw at the scene. Your son's back is covered in older, healed and healing linear burns. At least a dozen. They are a perfect match to the hair straightener we recovered. This has been happening for weeks, Mr. Ashford. Possibly months." The words hit Julian like a physical blow. Months. He had imagined one horrific, isolated act of madness. But months? He had been sending video calls to that sterile apartment, listening to perfect reports, while his son was being systematically tortured. He felt his knees buckle, and he leaned against the wall, the sterile white paint cold against his head. "My God. I didn't know." "That's just it, Mr. Ashford," Sarah said, her voice softening almost imperceptibly, but her eyes remaining hard. "You didn't know. You weren't there." She nodded once. "Come. He's been asking for you." That single phrase, "he's been asking for you," was a tiny spark of light in his suffocating darkness. He followed Sarah down the quiet, color-coded hallways of the children's wing. Cole Donovan followed a few paces behind, his presence a silent, official shadow. Sarah paused at a door. "He is heavily sedated for the pain, and he is very, very quiet. He's frightened of sudden movements." Julian pushed the door open. The room was dim. Leo was impossibly small in the large hospital bed, dwarfed by the machinery that wasn't even turned on, but was there just in case. His small, pale arms lay on top of the blanket. Both wrists were wrapped in thick white gauze. Julian's breath caught in his throat. He took a step forward. "Leo!" The boy's head turned on the pillow. His dark, enormous eyes, hazy with medication and trauma, found his father's. Julian tried to smile, but his face crumpled. "Leo, buddy, Daddy's here. I'm so sore." He stopped. Leo flinched. He didn't cry out. He didn't reach for him. He saw his father, the man who was supposed to protect him, and his small body contracted, his shoulders pulling in, his eyes squeezing shut, bracing for an impact. It was the single most devastating moment of Julian Ashford's life. The flinch broke him in a way no corporate failure ever could. He fell to his knees by the side of the bed, careful not to touch it, and just wept, his shoulders shaking. "I'm sorry, Leo," he whispered, his voice cracking. "I'm so sorry. I failed you. I'm here now. I will never, ever leave you again." After several minutes, he composed himself and walked back into the hallway, closing the door softly. Sarah and Cole were waiting. Julian's face was a ruin of grief, but also a new, cold fury. "I want her to rot. I want every lawyer I have." Sarah Jenkins cut him off. "Mr. Ashford, the criminal case against Ms. Reed is ironclad. Maria Sanchez's eyewitness testimony, the forensic evidence from the scene, and the medical reports. She will not be getting out. Detective Wells is already unsealing 2 prior NDAs from families in New York. Evelyn Reed's life as she knew it is over." Julian nodded, a grim satisfaction. "Good. I'll have my staff prepare the penthouse. He can't go back there. We'll stay at a hotel until I find a new—" "Mr. Ashford," Sarah interrupted again, her voice gentle but firm, like a surgeon setting a bone. "Leo is not going home with you." Julian's head snapped up. "What? What are you talking about? I am his father." "You are," Sarah agreed. You are also the guardian who, through severe neglect, allowed this to happen. You hired her. You were the only other adult in his life, and you were absent. Legally, Mr. Ashford, you are also under investigation. Leo is now a ward of the state of Washington. Julian stared at her, dumbfounded. The concept was alien to him. You can't be serious. I am his father. I will not let you put my son in foster care. He will remain here, at Children's, under our protection, until the court hearing, Sarah said. We will not place him in foster care if you comply, and compliance means you will attend every court date. You will attend mandatory parenting and child safety classes, and you will find a new, safe home that my team will inspect and approve. The court, not you, will decide when and if you get your son back. Julian Ashford, the man who moved markets, was speechless. He realized with chilling clarity that for the first time in his life, he had no power. He couldn't buy his way out. He couldn't threaten. He could only obey. Whatever it takes, he said, his voice hollow. Whatever it takes. The weeks that followed were a blur of sterile white rooms. The criminal trial of Evelyn Reed was swift. Kira Wells's team had successfully unsealed the NDAs, revealing 2 other incidents of extreme discipline that had been buried by hush money. In the courtroom, Evelyn, dressed in a smart, conservative suit, tried to maintain her facade of the misunderstood professional. But when Maria Sanchez, terrified but brave, took the stand and described, through tears, the smell of burning skin and the sound of the sizzle, Evelyn's mask crumbled. The judge, calling her a monstrous predator hiding behind a mask of privilege, sentenced her to 15 years in state prison. Julian was there, in the front row, watching her be led away in handcuffs, but he felt no victory. His own fight was just beginning. He appeared in family court a week later, a changed man. He was shaven, his suit was functional, not flashy, his hair was shorter. He looked humbled. He stood before the judge. Your Honor, he said, I have sold the penthouse at the Olympus Tower. I have purchased a home in Medina, a house with a yard. I have canceled all of my international travel for the next 2 years. My entire board knows that my only priority is my son. He presented certificates from 3 different parenting and trauma awareness classes. The judge, seeing the reports from the hospital and the sincerity of the father's actions, granted him custody, but with a strict condition. Leo was to remain under CPS supervision for 1 year, and he was to immediately begin intensive trauma therapy. The new house was warm, all natural wood floors, soft rugs, and large windows that looked out onto a garden, wet and green even in the winter. But the house was silent. Leo was there, but he was a ghost. He still didn't speak. He just sat and watched. Julian hired the best child therapist in the state, a man named Dr. Eris Thorne. Dr. Thorne was in his late 50s, with a kind, rumpled face, a graying beard, and warm brown eyes behind round glasses. He wore soft cardigans and smelled like old books. He didn't try to make Leo talk. He just sat on the floor with him, building with blocks. After a week, he met with Julian. He's locked in, Dr. Thorne said gently. That woman, she became every human to him. Every voice, every touch is a potential threat. He's associated people with pain. We need a bridge, something that can offer affection without the complicated, terrifying baggage of being human. Julian's mind flashed back to the hospital. He'd seen Leo's tiny, almost imperceptible nod. He'd seen the boy's eyes track a single figure. He knew. He made the call. The next day, a familiar Bellevue police cruiser, now off duty, pulled into the driveway. Cole Donovan stepped out, not in his uniform, but in jeans and a dark gray Henley. At his side was Titan. Julian opened the front door. Leo was sitting in the entryway, as he always did, watching. Cole looked at Julian. You sure about this? It's the only thing I'm sure about, Julian said. Cole nodded. He looked at his dog. Go see him, Titan. Go say hi. The great dog, sensing the quiet energy of the house, walked slowly forward. He stopped a few feet from Leo, his plumed tail giving one slow wag. He lay down, putting his head on his paws, and just watched the boy. Leo sat, frozen, for almost a full minute. Then, very slowly, his small, unbandaged hand the one that had flinched from his own father, reached out. He tentatively touched the top of Titan's broad, intelligent head. The dog didn't move, but let out a low, happy sigh. And for the first time in months, Leo Ashford made a sound. It wasn't a word. It was a tiny, sharp intake of breath, a gasp of curiosity, not of fear. Julian and Cole stood back, watching. The bridge was being built. 1 year later, the sound that filled the air was not the pressurized, sterile silence of the Olympus Tower, but the sound of laughter. It was a bright, clear, unrestrained sound, sharp and pure in the warm Sunday afternoon air. The new house in Medina was the antithesis of the penthouse. It was a structure of warm cedar, natural stone, and vast windows that didn't just look out at the world, but seemed to invite it in. The garden was large and slightly untamed, sloping down toward the water, and it smelled of damp earth, cut grass, and the faint, sweet scent of lake algae. Julian Ashford, wearing a faded polo shirt and worn jeans, was on his knees in the grass. He was no longer the haggard, haunted man from the hospital, nor the sharp, impatient billionaire from the video calls. The lines of fatigue were still around his eyes, but they were softer, balanced now by laugh lines. He was smiling. "I'm going to get you," he yelled. A small figure shrieked with delight and tore across the lawn. Leo Ashford, now 6 years old, was a different boy. He was still slender, but he was no longer small and breakable. He was fast, his cheeks flushed with exertion, his honey blonde hair messy with sweat. He was wearing a simple red t-shirt and shorts, his bare feet stained green from the grass. As he ran, the sunlight caught the pale silvery lines that traced his inner wrists. The scars were still there, faint and thin, a permanent reminder of the silence. But they were just marks now, not chains. "Can't catch me," Leo yelled, his voice strong, before collapsing into a fit of giggles. Okay, truce," Julian said, laughing as he sat back on the lawn, panting. "You're too fast for me, buddy." A car door closed softly at the top of the driveway. A moment later, 2 figures walked around the side of the house. The first was Cole Donovan, also out of uniform, wearing a simple t-shirt and jeans. The angular lines of his face softened by a relaxed smile. The second was Titan. The German Shepherd was no longer wearing the heavy K9 service vest. He was, technically, retired. 6 months after the incident, the Bellevue PD had approved Cole's petition for an early adoption. The dog, they agreed, had earned his retirement, and he was now simply Cole's dog. But he was also Leo's. "Titan!" Leo screamed, his face lighting up with a joy that eclipsed even the game with his father. He scrambled to his feet and ran, full tilt, launching himself at the dog. Titan, his plumed tail wagging so hard his whole body moved, met the boy with a happy woof, licking his face as Leo wrapped his arms around the dog's thick ruff. "Did you miss me? Did you miss me, boy? I missed you." Cole walked over and sat in the grass next to Julian, the 2 men watching the boy and the dog tumble in a happy heap. "Looks like he's doing okay," Cole said, his voice content. "He's a kid," Julian said, his voice thick with a quiet wonder, as if he still couldn't believe it. "Dr. Thorne said the nightmares are almost completely gone. He's starting 1st grade in the fall." He looked over at Cole. "He wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you, Cole. You know that, right? You saved us, both of us." Cole shook his head, picking at a blade of grass. "Maria saved him. She's the one who made the call. Titan found him. You did the work, Julian. You healed him." Julian nodded, accepting the shared victory. "Speaking of Maria," Julian said, "she sends her best. Her son's 1st-year tuition at Stanford is all paid up. She quit the cleaning service. My family office set up a small educational trust for her family. It was the least I could do." "That's more than the least, Julian," Cole said. "That's changing a life. That's what you're supposed to do." "It's what I'm learning to do," Julian replied. He was no longer a man who just wrote checks. He was a man who understood their weight. The foundation is officially launching next month. Cole had seen the article. Julian had liquidated half of his tech holdings and poured the money into a new charitable foundation. It had 2 purposes. First, to provide pro bono legal services to victims of abuse who were trapped by corporate NDAs, and second, to fund and lobby for mandatory rigorous psychological background checks for all in-home childcare providers. He was using his immense power to tear down the very wall of lies that had hidden Evelyn Reed. The Evelyn Reed Act, they're calling it, Cole said with a small smile, has a nice ring to it. Julian just grunted. I don't care what they call it, as long as it stops this from ever happening again. Ball, Leo yelled, running up to them, his face bright. He held a worn red rubber ball, slick with Titan's drool. Cole, play with us. Titan loves it when you throw. Cole laughed and got to his feet. All right, buddy, but I'm throwing it long. The four of them, a billionaire who had learned to be a father, a cop who had found his peace, a boy who had rediscovered his voice, and a dog who had been the bridge, spent the rest of the afternoon playing in the sun. Julian watched as Cole threw the ball, and Leo and Titan raced after it, their laughter and happy barking echoing across the green lawn. It was the sound of a new family, one forged not by blood, but by trauma, rescue, and a determined, stubborn climb back into the light. The silence of the penthouse was a distant echo, a ghost exorcised by the simple, perfect sound of a child's laughter. Sometimes, God's greatest miracles aren't storms stopped, but heroes sent. The miracle in this story was Maria, an ordinary woman with extraordinary courage. It was Officer Cole, placed exactly where he needed to be, and it was Titan, a guardian angel sent not with wings, but with paws, to build a bridge of healing. God often works through us. In your daily life, you can be that miracle for someone, a kind word, a brave phone call, an act of protection. If this story touched your heart, please share it as a reminder that heroes are all around us. Comment Amen if you believe in the healing power of compassion, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories of hope. May God bless you, and may He place a guardian, human or animal, by the side of those you love. Thank you for watching.